Alice Wahome, MP Kandara, karibu mheshimiwa. Also already in is Madam Jane Maina, who is with SEC. We expect Annie Reri, ED feeder, and Madam Millicent Otieno, founder and director of local capacities for Peace International. And because we have a schedule that we have to meet, allow me to invite Frank Mkwanja, the executive director of CMD Kenya, to speak to us and officially open this session. Karibu Bwana Mkwanja.
Thank you very much, Tabu, and good morning to all participants and our panelists, of course, led by Honorable Alice Wahome, the MP for Kandara, who also happens to be a former vice chairperson of the Center for Multi-Party Democracy. So welcome very much, and Jane Maina and my counterpart at FIDA, who will be joining us in a short while. As you are pretty well aware, CMD's part of CMD's core work is inclusivity, particularly in terms of gender. And we have done some work over the years to ensure that women participation in politics is both qualitative and quantitative. And we are still in it, making sure that the women get their deserved share, not as a gift, but as a right, that they are leaders in their own right and they contribute to the socio-economic welfare and progress of this country. We also appreciate that more women in politics make for stronger democracies. In any case, COVID-19 has provided us with real sufficient evidence that women leadership is really quality leadership, that is really visionary. Some of the countries that have really performed well in containing, the challenges of the COVID-19 pandemic and handling the crisis for better welfare of their citizens, actually women-led countries. Talk of New Zealand, talk of Denmark, talk of Germany. All these have really demonstrated very efficient leadership in times of crisis. So we have to challenge and ask ourselves all the way from global to local level, why are women underrepresented? All the way from my local primary school, if you look at the board of management, women are not adequately represented. When you look at the big international organizations like the United Nations, again, women are still underrepresented. We have all these blueprints that are promoting, meaningful participation and involvement of women in public leadership, with our own constitution being the anchor instrument. The question remains why, and these are the issues that we have to confront with collectively as elected leaders, as political and civic actors, as young women, as professional women, as leaders in our own rights, to ensure that we make a difference and we place women as competent leaders in positions that can be able to influence society for the good. So I want to thank you very much for agreeing to be part of this conversation, and hopefully that we can sustain this conversation even as we continue to clamor for reforms and improve the governance of our country, that the issue of gender inclusion becomes one of those critical reform issues that remain at the top of our mind, at the tip of our fingertips, to ensure that we institute the required institutional and legislative reforms to institutionalize this and sustain this for the better. So over to you again, and thank you very much on behalf of CMD and our member parties for accepting and agreeing to be part of this conversation. Back to you, Tabu, to lead us through this conversation. And best regards from Senator Halake, who is the current chair of CMD, courtesy of Senate duties. She has not been able to join in us on this conversation, but I've just received her text to wish you well and consider her part of this conversation. Thank you very much, Tabu, and please proceed.
Thank you very much, Frank, for helping us to grasp the issues that are ahead of us, and also for relaying Senator Halake's greetings to us. You can reciprocate the same by saying tumepokea. Over to our meeting, the women and their journey towards electoral contest. Every 5 years as a country, we go to elections. And the advent of the Constitution of Kenya 2010, one that has been described as being very progressive, one that has been acknowledged for it is a elaborate Bill of Rights, one that has been dubbed to have a lot of goodies for the women. It is letter and spirit provides opportunities for women, but it appears when we look at the 2017 elections, we had very many women running, but unfortunately, many of them went for the women seat, forgetting that there were other seats. Mheshimiwa Wahome, as an elected member of a single constituency seat, what tips do you have for women politicians with regard to daring the devil? And the devil here is going for non-traditional seats, just like you did in Kandara, and you got the seat. Mheshimiwa, what other opportunities exist beyond the women rep seat? And how do we ensure that women go for them and women get them? Over to you, Mheshimiwa. Wow.
Okay, thank you very much, Tabu, for inviting me to this meeting. Center for Multi-Party Democracy is aware that I served as their vice chair, and I'm happy to see that, and that is the period when J.B. Muturi, now current Speaker of the National Assembly, was the chair. So I served as the vice chair. I also served as the vice chair during the period of Rari Gumbe. And I'm happy to see that the women program is still being facilitated through Center for Multi-Party Democracy. So I am on board. Thank you very much. I can see there is a lot of interest from various members, women all over. And I have been a very maybe able member of NAC Kenya there before I was elected, because I was Daniel Tabu's Deputy Secretary General before I then moved to TNA. So I suppose I can proceed with my presentation.
Proceed, Mheshimiwa, and thank you for your good words.
Yes, I first and foremost, I want to encourage all the women who are on board and listening through this Zoom communication channel. I want to also maybe encourage the young men and also who are here, but I believe today is a platform for women, and we want to see how we have managed ourselves through this process, like many have said, and it is of course a historical fact that women have not really been able to get sufficient space for presentation. Sorry, I have come from my garden, and I was trying to see how I can do vegetable gardens, and I can now safely remove my mask. I want to say that it's been a very big struggle for women, a very painful struggle for women in this country, to be able to sit on the same table at equal level, on equal opportunity, accessing equal space, political space. Let's talk about political space before you can even go to economic empowerment. The political space in this country has been skewed in favoring men, and not because Men have not also been very participatory in ensuring that there is no space. Of course, traditionally, a hierarchical country, patriarchal country like ours, has very deep-rooted structures that have not favored participation of women. And you can assume that because women have now gone to school, those structures have started to break down. I want to say that those structures are still being nurtured in a way, because even in a family setup, even today, there are those families that place more value on a male child than a girl child. And therefore, the structures, including for governance, have taken too long, even with a new constitution, to be broken down. There is need for great goodwill from political leadership at the highest level. And somebody has said before that it takes only one word from persons in decision making to change paradigm, to change policy. A person in decision making level, say like myself, where I have to get people in my committees, in my constituency, it takes my word to sway everybody else. It therefore takes the word of the political party leaders to change the violence accompanying elections, to change the list that they submit after nominations, because nominations is one of the other biggest handle. Violence is a big handle. Lack of finance for women is a big handle. I'm just throwing this so that you can start to see. For me to reach where I have reached, of course, it takes the president to change the cabinet setup. It takes the president to ensure that we have 50-50 cabinet representation. We don't have that. It takes 50-50 for policy decision to and it is supported by the constitution to ensure that all directorships in our national agencies, be it commissions, be it development authorities, be it government agencies, it takes one word from the top level decision makers to change the setup to include women. We are in a situation where we are talking about inclusion or inclusivity. Can we start inclusivity of women? Because Article 27 of our Constitution requires that women be involved. Article 100 also brings on board persons with disability, minorities. Can we even look at those two articles in our Constitution? And that would include those sectors of our population. So for me to reach where I reached, of course, I lost twice. I lost the elections for Kandara constituency in 2002 when I started, and I also lost elections in 2007. When I started my campaigns in 2002 from very little, maybe experience in terms of hard tackle politics, because I had not been a manager, had not participated properly. And that's where, maybe we start too late. Of course, I was already 40 plus. And therefore, when I lost, I kind of got quite shocked. Although I did very well, because I scored number 2 in the nominations. They were not fair, free and fair. I could have done better in terms of possibly dealing with those shenanigans, around the nominations. And I would obviously was the winning candidate. In 2007, all the reports coming from my constituency before elections, including the polls from international organizations, reported that I was going to be elected by over 75%. I didn't win. I was leaked out. I ended up in court for several years. The case was never conducted. When the ballot boxes were brought to court before the judge, the report, because you have to file a report of the status of the materials, election materials, it showed that 80 ballot boxes were interfered with, were actually open, and that should never be, because after elections, you lock the ballots and you seal them, and you get the serial numbers written down. 20 ballot boxes were missing. 15 only were intact. I think either 20 were intact, 15 were totally missing, completely missed. They were not there. The ballot boxes were not there. What happened? So I lost that elections in those circumstances. And the court, judiciary has a role. It did not do much to help. You know, like when a judge is faced with a list of materials that shows 80% of the ballot boxes are interfered with, do you need any other evidence? Finally, I lost it. I withdrew that case because at the time I was being asked whether I wanted to have it heard. I was the member of parliament for Kandara. So obviously then at that stage, it was an academic exercise. There is a lot of push and pull. And because I don't want to discourage women. Tabu Daniel, you said that during the last elections, there were many women who volunteered, who agreed to come up to go for elections. Let me add value to, without disputing so much. It's not factual that there were many women. I think there were many women is another statement, Tabu, that we need to evaluate and see factually were they many compared to the number, because it is relative. Yes, there were many women, but it is relative because you have to compare that number with the number of our male colleagues that came up for elections. The women were 10% of the number that the male produced for elections. So that is the beginning of our challenge and problem. So we need to address that. If we had 1,000 women last election, we need 10,000 women in the coming general elections so that you have enough to lose and enough to be elected. And I'm saying the number is small because these are opportunities. Tabu, you have said these are opportunities. There are opportunities for, let's begin from the county assembly. In my constituency, we couldn't, apparently, even after I have been on the ground for 20 years, women still don't come forward for mentoring. I do not know, and I really, and I work a lot with them. I try, but they are scared. They don't have funding. They don't, they have to get permission from their husbands or their families. It is still that politics is dirty. The last general election, this last one, we didn't have a woman to be elected in my 6 wards. And I tried to mentor some, and they were there in the field. This particular coming one, I hope there will be more. The whole of Muranga, we have only 3 MCAs elected. It's not right for 35 wards to have only 3 women elected as MCAs. So I'm saying those are opportunities for women. And women must know these are powerful positions in the county assemblies. They are numerative. If you are elected and organize yourself better, your life will change compared to your life before. If, for example, and of course, these are our spaces. Then members of parliament, like me, 23 constituencies only, out of 290 constituencies. Hello, we are talking about a balance of the rest, 290 minus 23 constituencies. So again, these are opportunities. For the 47 is an affirmative action. I always applaud that particular section, article of our constitution that gave us that space. They need to maybe find a way of ensuring that they move along with women, because at one stage women feel like they have disconnected. But I can tell you, even them, even to maintain and retain your seat against your women, fellow women, also you have to fight for the space. So again, so you will see that they will also now start seeing like women are also against them, because it is a woman who will want the 47, one of the 47 seats. So those dynamics also make their participation in women issues also very, very peculiar in a way. And I'm saying that we need those spaces. I'll be the last person to agree with any constitutional amendment or movement that will remove those seats until we attain 50-50 presentation on a fair platform. Of course, we need to look at the governors. Why should there be not a single governor in this country? Going forward, women must know that the governor positions are available. Senators, 47, all these places, we need powerful position women, we need strong women, we need a women movement that brings the right sensitization, awareness creation, so that the women can support women, so that you can be able to say, to identify with the women. Also, we must know that there is a political cost in political competitions. There is a cost and there is a value. So women must also add value to women so that they can be able to say, look, you were elected on our scorecard, you were elected on our work, and therefore we need you to continue carrying the gender card forward for and on our behalf. And then finally, I want to say that therefore, Center for Multi-Party Democracy and other partners need to start now. We have there are many colleagues of mine in this coming parliament that will not be elected. But who will replace them is the question. Is it a female or a male? Those are the gaps that we now need to see. How do we ensure that 23 women, if they still want to run for their constituencies, will be retained and will not be lost in the next general elections? How do we ensure the MCAs who are there can be given another term so that they can start maybe working the other election for a constituency position? How do we empower the 47, some of the 47 women in the affirmative action seats in the counties to go further and look for other positions, the Senate and the governorship and the constituency seats, so that they leave that space for other women? How do we make at least half of them get out of those positions? You know, they feel like they are safe spaces. You know, 47 feel like those are safe spaces. And I want to announce here, they are not safe spaces for retention. Actually, they are only safe places for a woman to be elected, but they are not safe spaces for women to be re-elected, because the results of the last elections is evidence that only 10 women were re-elected from the 47. 37 were lost. So, these are the very serious dynamics. I want to end there and say that I will be obviously running myself in the next general elections. I have not, and I'm positioning myself for very powerful positions, even if it is a member of parliament. I'm positioning myself for a very powerful position in the next government. So I do not plan to be lost somewhere there in between. And I hope that I can also get support from good friends like you and Center for Multi-Party Democracy. And it should be the business of Center for Multi-Party Democracy, business for women, business for other partners, to ensure that women, especially those with vocal voice, who have already occupied spaces, they can speak, they can deliver on their promises, that actually they are re-elected. Because also politics has a clout. You have to have a clout to have a political cost for your party, so that your party can see that you are value to them, and that you should not be the first to be cleared from the clearing out, you know. And politics is really is a competition for all of us, and we must agree to enter into the competition without expecting too much of favor, but too much of merit. We must also know that it is a merit field. You have to merit. The voters have to find some value. You have to know what messages. Right now, we should be developing a lot of messages to create awareness in the ground for women. Materials, t-shirts, flyers, meetings, caucuses at the grassroots, so that the women voice can be louder than it is now. Thank you very much. Asante sana.
Thank you very much, Mheshimiwa Home, for sharing with us your journey and encourage women with regard to what is expected of them as we move towards 2022. But Mheshimiwa, before you exit, there's this animal in the house, the two-third gender rule that is not a token, is not actually a favor, it's a constitutional provision. But to date, we have not achieved the same as a sitting member of parliament and a woman for that matter. What do you have to say is a problem for us to achieve the two-gender rule? And as much as people are clamoring to amend, why amend what has not been implemented, Mheshimiwa?
You know, Daniel Tabu, I don't belong into the category that are recommending and proposing. And if you are on this platform, you must be very careful and afraid of proponents of amendment of the Constitution, because it is not a document that has been owned properly by the people of Kenya. And through the proposers is the Right Honorable Raila Odinga and our President, His Excellency Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta. But from the date of proposal of the handshake, or the date of the handshake, and then to BBI, there has been legal gaps that has made appreciation of the constitutional review or amendment complicated and difficult, because once you become the owner of the idea, you must defeat the idea. So the idea of amending this constitution now, when implementation is still a challenge, for me, does not become the priority. So I do not myself support a referendum, because it is possible that we will lose the gains that women have not even yet achieved by way of implementation. On the one hand, you have it in the Constitution, Article 27. Of course, minorities don't have a law today that gives them the fair space within the implementation. The role of implementation, Tabu, and the listeners, participants of this meeting, the role of implementation of the Constitution, the first obligation and responsibility is by the state. Article 27 gives the state the responsibility to ensure that policy, affirmative action policy development is done. Implementation is done. That responsibility, our government, which I am a member of that government, has done very poorly. Because if you look at every other government sector, you will not find sufficient gender quota. Why? Because I say the political goodwill now must start from the top. We've done what we needed to do to bring a constitutional framework. We have had 5 bills in Parliament. Of course, Parliament is a disaster. Even as I put responsibility to the executive, Parliament also is a disaster. And women did very well. We lobbied. We did everything we needed to do. The result was that we lost 5 bills. And the best we did on one voting was 195 votes. And you can see, to get 195 votes from a male-dominated parliament is a sluggish job. It is a bad job. It's tiring. It makes you feel extremely beaten, and we lost. But the reason we lost, and this is what Kenyans must understand, is because political parties also have owners that weigh over a lot of decisions. Tabu knows if Martha Karua, the party leader or chairperson of NARC Kenya, said something need to be done, most of the party members will listen. So had the Right Honorable Raila Odinga with his big brother, Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta, or younger brother, I think it depends on where you are coming from or what particular subject. If these big brothers or these 2 brothers wanted the constitution to be changed so that we can have 233, they would have been able to whip 233 members. But I can tell you, as one of the women who were in the leadership of the 2/3 gender bill, proponent, because we realize that the Ministry of Gender and the leader of majority, because this government bill became a government bill at one time. It was a member's bill, but we discussed and made sure that it becomes a government bill, because as I said, it's the responsibility of the government to implement, to ensure implementation, to ensure the legislative proposal passes or constitutional amendment passes. But we visited all the political party leaders. And I can tell you, I have said before, I think I only found one of them who was genuine. And that person who was genuine that time was Kalonzo Musyoka as a Wiper leader. And I'm now talking about the top party leaders. All the others were giving us deep service, but they will tell you, we will support, we are supporting. And then you are given Eden Duare as the majority leader, you think you are on board, or you are on course rather. So we've lost because there has been no political goodwill. It will not be done by Parliament. And I am aware that petitioners have gone before the Chief Justice, including the LSK, and I want to congratulate them and ask them to champion on, because even today, if you listen to our Speaker of National Assembly, he did not demonstrate, he did not display panic that Parliament is under threat of dissolution. And I said before that Parliament could be dissolved. So right now we are expecting that the Honorable the Chief Justice, David Maraga, could do the right thing. Under the Constitution, he can do the right thing by dissolving Parliament, turudi mashabani kwa wananchi, tuchapwe vizuri. Dissolve Parliament, or recommend, of course, he would recommend, because the power then to dissolve under the Constitution, the last say is with the head of state, the president. So if Maraga were to advise the president, and Parliament doesn't understand, Maraga doesn't have an option. If he were to do what the Constitution requires him to do, the Chief Justice has no option but to recommend dissolution of Parliament. From there, then the president will have the responsibility of announcing the dissolution of Parliament. I hope we can reach there so that this gender thing can be understood, that it is a human rights issue, that women's rights are also human rights, and that women and men are equal before the law, before the Constitution. So yes, we have lost so far. Should we amend the Constitution? Don't get me on board on that. I don't think we should.
Thank you very much, Mheshimiwa Wahome. You've been very candid with regard to this matter, and it is true, women's rights are human rights, and there is nothing about us without us. So the journey to dissolution actually should come like yesterday. Now, as we pray for the dissolution of Parliament so that we get more women on board, the question Mheshimiwa has raised is very critical. How prepared are we?
Correct.
What are we doing right now? How are we positioning ourselves to ensure that when this opportunity comes, we don't plunge into it too late, like she has told us of her 20 or 2 attempt. Madam Millicent Otieno, numbers don't lie. And it is a fact that if the women of this nation and their numbers are well utilized, then they will propel women to occupy most, if not all, the political offices. What, in your view, should we do to rally the women of Kenya to aspire for elective office? Remember, Mheshimiwa Wahome said that even in her Kandara constituency, it is a struggle to have women to come out and run for office. And beyond having women to run for office, what we need to do to ensure that women are supporting each other. Number 2, as a community mobilizer and a crusader for peace, what practical experiences can you share with us to spur us into community mobilization around the women political agenda while embracing peaceful coexistence with self and others? Madam Otieno.
Thank you very much, Daniel Babu. I hope you can hear me loud and clear. Just Mheshimiwa Honorable Alice Wahome has said it is not an easy task for the women, and yet women have refused to continue to be seen as victims. And I think, of course, as you rightfully said, and Honorable Wahome added value, that we may say that there were more women who showed up, but we can't really say the numbers were as good as people may want it to look like. So from the community perspective, I'd like to say that first and foremost, allow me to quote the good book that I refer to, that my people perish for lack of knowledge. I think many of the women aspirants or would-be aspirants have been not able to give themselves up or come forth for elective positions because of what they see happening to the other women. Like Honorable Wahome said, the politics and the violence that's characterized the politics is one of the things that discourage women. I come from a peace practitioner perspective, and security is one of the things that we like to talk to women about, that we have to ensure that not only the state security ensures that women go into political positions, but also the political parties have to ensure that the security of the aspirants is taken care of. But we know that the truth of the matter is every single political aspirant has been compelled to have goons or gangs or groups that fight for them to ensure that in the absence of resources to mobilize this kind of a team of young people around you that can make noise, or that you're not booed out of the gatherings, intellectual incapabilities of the women has been one of the things that has hampered. And so as we have engaged the women from the grassroots levels, first and foremost, we have tried to inculcate the self-esteemness and the self-worthness and the fact that this is not a favor, that we deserve to be leaders, not because we are women, but because women are leaders with qualities just like men, and they can lead this country to the next level. So giving that information, awareness creation, and empowering them to see the greatness in them. And number two, to see that there's power in coming together as women, not only to fight for the women representative seats, but also to say that, yes, we can around one of us and use this ladder to climb, and others can also climb alongside this other woman. The other thing that we have also awareness creation and civic education, that the women have to be part of the implementation, the duty of the state, but also as women, that women should not be the first champion. We are saying that we should not be silenced when a woman leader is doing the wrong thing. Yes, we rebuke, but we must not be the one that are used through the systems of patriarchy to pull down other women who are sometimes even falsely accused and are brought down from the leadership positions. And if there is a justifiable case for a woman to leave an elected position, then we have to rally around as women to ensure that the replacement is by another woman. So I think up to now, the realization that when one woman leaves the seat and another man takes over, for us to come back and regain the seat is becoming more and more clearer to the women. Another thing that we have, been talking about, and we are come in numbers to strengthen political parties as institutions. Mheshimiwa is telling us that political parties have their owners. Of course, they have their owners. And one of the examples we have been using as we talk, we say that we have merry-go-round groups. In those members of the merry-go-round groups that make laws in those merry-go-round groups. It is only members of those merry-go-round groups that actually also earn dividends and contribute and yet we have seen political parties because there has been such acrimonious kind of relationship in those political parties. And we are seeing that it's about time we had women coming in their numbers. It's not one particular political party. We have several, we have over 60 political parties. Women need to be registered members of those parties. How can you purport to speak on behalf of a party that you're not a party to, you're not a member of? And that's why you have seen even in the last elections, most of the women who are running went as independents because they found that the political parties were too murky for them. And we want to encourage them and say, yes, we know that there's a skewedness in the political parties, but if we have the right numbers and we follow and you serve the party, you don't come today and want to be elevated tomorrow. We have to put in the work. And the time is now, if not yesterday, for us to start understanding what is the manifesto of this party. Do I want to belong to this? Does it speak to my aspirations? As I want to go into leadership, what can I bring into this party and what can I gain? So as we encourage women not to be scared of political parties, but use political parties as institutions that need strengthening. If indeed we have the membership, we can try to lend voice. And we try to encourage them saying, we are chipping from a rock and we have a chisel. Can you imagine chipping from a rock with a chisel? It means you keep knocking. And as you know, if you go down, don't stay down. We have to keep coming up. So I think as we look at mobilization of the women, first and foremost, we get into the organized groups that have been there, and we give the right information. We try to highlight some of the examples and real life examples like what Mheshimiwa has talked about. We try to encourage our elected leaders to handhold the young women. And we are telling them, don't sit in your house. Nobody's coming to look for you in your home. You have to get yourself out there. Volunteer in political party processes. Volunteer in leadership processes. Come out and interact with the communities. Because then if you are, the chief knows you, understand the system, the political system and the governance system, and be part of the community so that you may be able to gain some clout as you go along. So in that regard, I want to speak of some of the successes. We have seen some success, especially in the youth wing of the political parties, of some of the political parties that we were targeting not only women, but also young women, even working through institutions such as Maendeleo ya Wanawake, which are already having some structures, but going into those structures and inculcating the desire to come up and volunteer in yourself and offer yourself as a leader. So we have seen some of the young, vibrant ladies who are well-schooled and also understand the context, wanting now to go for the seats of the MCAs. Why am I singling out the MCA as an example? Because for a very long time, people thought this seat is looked down upon. And we have realized that the county assemblies wield so much power, even when it comes to resource allocation. Most of the CIDP, the County Integrated Development Plan budgets, the fiscal budgets in the counties is passed in the county assembly. And the men, if the majority, the women issues, the things that women value the most, like the health bills and all these other bills, don't get priority. So we are encouraging people, and as far as we are concerned now in the civil society and some of the faith-based groups that we've been mobilizing people, we have seen women now saying, yes, we want to go for the seat of the MCA. Yes, we want to try and aspire also to be members of parliament, but we need a stepping stone. That brings me to the next level, because I think the Center for Multi-Party Democracy as a safe space and a platform that has a mobilizing space for the political parties, I think you can also lend voice to some of these young women who want to come into the political parties. The first thing, they have agreed, there is a strong mobilization going on into registering as members of political parties. They have agreed to do that. there are financial implications that have to do with campaigns. How do we then make our campaigns less of the money that is being given to the constituents, but rather, you know, the substance of what the leaders are bringing to fore? These are some of the things that we are hoping that within your system you can talk about campaign financing for the women and those who are going for the MCA positions. We are even telling them, those of them who have been working as administrators, they need to come up, you know, in the chiefs and assistant chiefs. And so basically we are just saying that leadership, there's elective leadership, but there is also other spaces of leadership that are not necessarily elective. But in terms of the political clouds, where there is more at risk for the women, including in parliament, which Mheshimiwa has talked about, we need more hand-holding, we need more financial support. And so I think I just want to say that we are making a call. Everybody who can speak to a woman, let us not bring other women down. Let us hold each other's hands. Let us support financially. Let us link up. Let us network. Let us do this jointly. And together, we can be able to succeed. And for those who failed, don't stay down. This is the message we are putting out there. And we are confident that if we consistently continue, we will be able to make a difference. That's just a bit of what I wanted to say for now. I am trying to just pick out a few things because I know that the time is also not on our side. So financing for the women, hand-holding for the women, telling them that there's nothing wrong with going for these positions, because boosting their self-esteem and just telling them it is okay to even be insulted. But we are not saying we normalize the insult, no. And we are also saying that as people rally around each other, the same way the youth are rallied around their political, you know, cronies, we also want women to stand with fellow women and back them up, because a vote for one woman is a vote for all of us. And you're not going there because you're a woman. You're going there because you're a leader and you can deliver. So deliver, and we will judge you on that basis. These are some of the messages that we are using to mobilize the women, to rally them around each other, and to create partnerships and networks so that women can have a common agenda to push them forward for political question. But I want to pause there. If there's any need for clarification, I'm on standby. I know there are other panelists. I didn't want to repeat what Mheshimiwa had said, but I just wanted to say that women at the grassroots level are fired up. There's more information that is going on, but we can't relent. We have to keep pushing the information, lending voice, and ensuring that the right message is passed at the right time. Thank you very much. I bring it back to you as I stay on standby.
Thank you very much, Madam Millicent Otieno. At this point, we have listened to two of our panelists. I believe there are a few issues that would like to be clarified. Kindly go to the Mo and raise your hand so that we can get a few of you to ask your questions. Nyaramba, you can go.
Yes, good morning to you all. My name is Esnas Nyaramba from Kisi. I wanted to thank first Honorable Alice, because she has been a pillar and icon to most women. My big question is, why do we usually have these men saying that women are the enemies of themselves? Where did this thing come from? And from the side of the Waheshimiwas, how can they help us huku chini? So because I'm looking at the women not vying even for the women rep seat, because that is automatically for a woman. How can they help the women who are coming up in Mashinani to run for these men-dominated seats like MCA, Senate, MP, and leave the women's rep seat first, so as we can have strong women coming on board not only on nomination or on a women rep seat, but through the other seats that are also strong in the counties and in the National Assembly. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Immaculate. Immaculate Shamala. Oh, we've lost her. Peris Mkanjala, can you go so that Mheshimiwa can answer both questions?
Good morning, everybody. And Mheshimiwa, I'd like to thank you so much. You're such an inspiration to most of us women. And I really do follow up whatever you do. And I love your passion. I love your strength. Now, my worry, I have a small worry. I don't know if there is any law that we can push to protect women who are vying for positions. Because we have women who are strong. We have leaders who are females. But the problem is the insults. The insults are the one, if you're very keen, there's nothing else. The sexual insults, most of them, are the ones that push women away from politics because they are scared of being humiliated. They're scared of even breaking their homes because a lot of women like mzee anakuja analeta issues because there are vitu zimeongelewa huko nje and he ends up breaking the homes and everything. So I don't know if there's a law that can be put in place to just protect the women from these insults and everything. Number two, me, I would like, as much as those things they are there, but I always like telling women in politics, ukiingia siasa, have a thick skin and be ready for anything, because there's nothing much that can be thrown to you apart from those insults. That's the only weapon that they use to push women away. And then there are these traditional beliefs, only if you're, like me personally, I'm a widow. And there's a time I was just joking with one of our Shimiwas that atinataka kusimama Butere MP. The first thing that most of them walisema tafuta mzee, lazima uelewe utasimama aje kama wewe ni dini, utachunga bomba gani? Wewe kwanza utachunga bomba ya nyumbani ama nje? So like there are those traditional beliefs that they're bringing down women. I don't know how we can protect our women from such. And also finances. Na hii kitu ya kusema women are the enemies of themselves, this thing has been said so much mpaka women have believed it themselves and you've started to believe like it's true. But it is a very big lie that has been thrown to us that has turned to be very true. So like me, I like encouraging women. We are many and we have the numbers. And if you decide to push, we can push. Like if you can start a movement despite our different political parties, because I know that's another hindrance for women who will be vying. Like if I want to push for you, Mheshimiwa Esther, you are in Team Tanga Tanga, me I'm in Team Saliam Davadi. Now me coming to push for you against my own in a Zaleta issue. So I don't know if we can start an umbrella body that will give us as an excuse to protect us to push for fellow women. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Peris, and the rest of us, please let us stay away from whatever team you belong to. We have a women agenda, and that is the one we want to push regardless. Tafadhali. Madam Immaculate, you are the last to go, and then Mheshimiwa Alice will respond to those three. Madam Shamala? Madam Shamala? Oh, hapatikani. So, Mheshimiwa Wahome, kind of...
Tabu.
Kindly a minute. Oh.
Hello, Madam Shamala.
Tabu, hello. The reason why I mentioned...
Please, Madam Shamala, you are on the stage.
Yes, yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Tabu. And thank you very much, CMD, for giving us this platform to talk to each other. And I also want to thank our panelists, Honorable Wahome, who I talked to her and she did not hesitate to be part of this conversation. Same to my sister Millicent and the ED of FIDA. And it just shows how women, we want to harness this agenda because it is long overdue. Plus also we are building a sisterhood, a movement that we can speak one language and have one common agenda. I have a question to Honorable Wahome. From your discussion, which was very powerful, it leaves me with this impression that the quagmire we are in terms of implementation of the Constitution could be as a result of two key persons who are in the highest seat in the decision-making organ, and that is the president. And as you've been quoting his brother. And it begs this question, Honorable, if our leaders are not responding to a fundamental critical issue that's a human right issue to include women into the leadership spaces and decision-making organ, and we have tried all other ways, the way you said, be it constitutionally, be it discussions, be it diplomacy, negotiations, and they are failing. Do we sit back and wait, or is there a way the KEWOPA, is there a way the National Gender Commission, is there a way this caucus can think of radical ways that can activate women to stand up the way Wangare Maathai did in those years, to stand up and say it's enough? Is there ways that we can start thinking and start believing and get the conviction that we can do it, so that we can activate these people who are holding us back, that they can see the need to speed up some of these processes? Because from your discussion, that is where the problem is. Can we fix it by using our own women means, our own radical ways to excite, or rather to engineer and to influence change? Then the second question to Honorable Wahome. And this, I saw that women, we started being clustered into dressing. We were clustered into the white and pink and into the maroon and yellow. Is this the right direction that we would want to go? Women who you are in those influential positions, can we deconstruct such, things that can make us maybe split and maybe come up with one way that we can have a common women's agenda, minus these factions for me that are influenced externally? Is there a way that we can have you and others and myself take away those clothes, the clothes that we are wearing, and put on one cloth that we are women, our tribe is women, our business is to ensure that we are in leadership positions because our agenda is transformative? Thank you very much.
Karibu sana Mheshimiwa Wahome.
Okay, thank you very much for those questions. I will start by, I want to actually congratulate Millicent Otieno for also my co-panelists for a very good presentation. She's powerful, she's strong, and she has the right cue, and I don't know what she's doing, but she's one of those women who should be thinking of going to the constituencies and map her own constituency and tell us where she wants to be. Because before I started political, processes of being elected, I was, of course, I first served as a member of the Council of Law Society of Kenya. I then also served at the same time at FIDA Kenya. I was in the position of Vice Chair FIDA Kenya. And during those periods, that was in the 1999 to 2001. And it is during that period that I felt that, we were doing so much to build capacity, to tell women, to create awareness among women so that they can volunteer and come out to take elective positions. And I realized that if we in FIDA, a good number of us who had capacity, one way or the other, had capacity, had the right knowledge, knew what to do, had some little finances, were not willing, then who are we speaking to? So I'm speaking to Millicent, and she needs to join the teams. This particular forum, TAB, would be a failure or a loss if we do not, from this particular forum, today's meeting, identify a certain number of women who we shall put forward for the next elections. And yes, Millicent said it is now, time is now for you to do it. She also said that we need to do mobilization. I'll come to the question. Mobilization has to be accompanied by messaging. We need very powerful messaging, because I think previously we have been coming very late into the election cycle. Of course, the election cycle starts after the last election. When the general election is over, the next cycle starts immediately, because people, and so women need to be prepared. And those who have not started and are thinking must know that you are getting late. So mobilization of the communities, of the people, not mobilization of women alone. Of course, when you are doing a campaign, you have to, your strategy must be able to break down the various categories of voters, so that you have women as a category, and you have to, because you need to know what messages the women will hear, will get, so that they can own you as their candidate. You need to know what activities to do with them. Then, of course, for the youth, we require different activities and different messages. We require different material and activities. So therefore, and then, of course, the men, especially the senior ones, who occupy a very influential position in our communities, especially the rural communities. We also require different messaging. So CMD can work with women around those areas. Of course, you have to have your strategy, right? And sometimes you don't need much. You just need to be able to communicate what you are saying. And and therefore, the first question was that from Perry. The first question was from Njaram, I think was Jaramba? Nyalamba, yes. Nyaramba, yes, Nyaramba, you are asking what we can do to deal with the pull her down syndrome. Women are their worst enemies. We fight each other. I will consider this as a stereotype, something spoken so many times that it becomes like it is existing or it is real. But it is also good to be honest and candid and say that I think insults and attacks from women against a woman become more real to the woman candidate, and possibly have a different pain, because you would be expecting empathy and support from her. And that's where we possibly start wrong. The women are socialized by the same society. So they will behave, the women in the village and the youth will behave the way that society is behaving. So let's not expect a different standard from women supporters. So that when you start from the fact that they can tell you anything, then you will not dwell on the pull her down syndrome. I think the first thing is, how can you empower those women to be your greatest mobilizers? And when women come on board, I want to announce that they don't change easily. They are better supporters because they are consistent and they are faithful more than men, and the capital gain is huge from women. They will support you for very different reasons from the men supporters. And therefore, I think that you can count on their vote. Of course, sometimes they can easily be swayed, especially in some of our communities where clans and those patriarchy structures are stronger. Maybe the clan is making decisions, but you still can get assured of the women vote once it is on board. So find how to work with their merry-go-round groups, and you can also do your own groups. Do your own mobilization. Means you can set up your own groups, and you can work around the government funding that is existing. Women, we have the Women Enterprise Fund. That fund and the Youth Enterprise Fund is something you can sensitize women and get several groups to join and apply. And that fund is being administered monthly, so that every month you can find that you have gone slowly, quietly within the unit that you have selected as your constituency, and get women on board to benefit from the Women Enterprise Fund. And the beginning check is 100,000 shillings. That money is there. Nobody can stop you from going to the groups. Even if it's a constituency that's already occupied, you can find a way of getting those women organized. And some of them have already received or are receiving, but there are those who are a bit afraid. So that's an area we can. So I don't like myself. I don't dwell on the pull her down syndrome so much because again, I think it is spoken more by men than by women. So we need to be careful about things that distract us. So that of course then answers the question for Paris Mkanjara, insults. What do we do? Do we come up with a law? It's not just women who are insulted. Every candidate for a political seat goes through the same wrath. I think campaign time is like we open all systems, go for insults, matusi, bila sababu, from nowhere, from anywhere, from the, from the most unexpected corner, a word is thrown at you. But you know what? The men have done it. So we have got to do it. That's how it is for now. And, to come up with a law to kind of infringe or curtail freedom of speech, freedom of expression. You know how it has become a problem. Even the cyber bullies are becoming bolder and nastier and, consistent. They dwell on you. So you better start developing a big, thick skin so that you either engage them or get your teams to engage them. But you can distract them by sending right messages that speak some value to them than speaking insults to them or throwing insults across each other. So I think the way is you have to build a system, security system around yourself, both physical, moral and mental support system. And that's why the training is key. Training. I did go through several trainings myself through LSK, through FIDA, through CMD, and therefore I think training to build capacity for women to understand what to face, to hear experience sharing. Like, I can speak hours and hours. I can speak different perspectives, but and I went through it all. I went through it all, including on the morning of the nomination, before I was elected in 2013. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to tell you, I went to bed at around 3:30 or around 4-ish after ensuring that my agents have the necessary materials and badges so that they can go in the morning at 6 to wait for the ballot boxes. Those who were now going on the way to the polling stations at around 5, some of them called me up and had just slept for less than an hour. You know what, Mheshimiwa, we have condoms all over the polling stations. The condoms had been distributed in packets and with a label of Alice Muthoni Wahome, giving a gift. Quote in bracket, a gift from Alice Muthoni Wahome. Here are condoms distributed all over the polling stations on the morning of 2013, 17th of March, for purposes of messing and destroying my vote. So there's nothing that I have not gone through, and not just me. If you speak to Miri Othiambo, you speak to all these women, you'll find that they have gone through this. And of course, the first time a woman candidate goes on the field, especially a constituency that has never seen a woman, gets very excited and so you need to, when you get announced or when you announce yourself, just be prepared for excitement, sometimes negative, sometimes positive. But you know what? I guess that's for now. I don't want to promise you that, because there is a law that, some of these things are criminal. But, you get exhausted now. You start now directing yourself to the wrong agenda. And there is no time to go running after people who are insulting you, idiots sometimes. People who really don't mean much. Some of them are not even having IDs or so. I want to tell women that you have to be focused so that you know what to waste time on and what not to waste time on. Let's move to the other question on traditional beliefs. Of course, all those beliefs are there and they influence how people vote. So it's for you to come up with your message against those traditional beliefs. And what I do in my constituency may be different from what somebody in Migori or Homa Bay or Marsabit or Tabeta, or Meru will do, depending on that climate. Then I think there is a question on develop your messages properly. Those messages of yours will have even slogan. My last slogan for my last campaigns was very simple. It was in Kikuyu, Mso Okworenge. And I know you may not get it. Mso Okworenge means Mudhoni once again, like Tano Tena. It was in Kikuyu, and we also had a song to drum up the message. And the message was, I've started good work, and I have projects that are ongoing. I need more time, another 5-year term to complete. The song was a hit. And then the message sang that I needed to be given another chance to complete my projects. And that's how, and of course, my core project or blue chip project was education. I went on education full throttle, sorting out schools, renovations in my primary schools that have never seen renovations. There were earth floors, destroyed floors, roofs that were leaking and raining, or over, no windows, no doors, no toilets. Even today, I have not been able to fix everything because I have 77 public schools. So, but I was also on let's improve education. So I sang that song of education from day one when I was elected to the last, to ensure that the attitude by parents also changes, teacher attention to the pupil better, and a better environment. And that's what propelled me to re-election. So then I want to answer Shamara. The first question was, leaves me with the impression, versus, I think you are speaking to what radical way, because of the failure by the big boys to support the 2/3 gender principle. What radical way? I spoke to the fact that there are petitions before the CJ. One radical way, and there are women within the petitioners before the Chief Justice. There are women organizations other than LSK. So, and CRU was one of those organizations that went to court over the question of the 2/3 gender rule. There are judgments that are pending. These people don't hear these things. They are not listening. So the threat of dissolution is good. So I would say that one radical way is dissolution of parliament. And I had said that before, Immaculate. The other radical way, I think, is for women to mobilize themselves and start saying no to the constitution amendment before the 2/3 gender rule is achieved. I think those two are enough, because you have to hit at where the pain will be felt or where they will hear most. I think the president and Honorable Raila Odinga are very interested in the amendment or review of the constitution. And for me, and with the greatest respect to those two, it is not people-driven considerations that are driving them. And other people have said so. I have said that before, and I have been met with a lot of wrath, a lot of intimidation. My security has been withdrawn. I have gone to court petition for return of my security, and it has been returned partially. I'm still pushing for the full return of my security. The point is, nobody should feel that they are doing us a favor by amending the constitution. It is the people who wrote this constitution, and women have not received the fruits of their hard labor. It was severe hard labor to reach at the principle of 2/3, many years, decades, and today women are waiting. I said the responsibility is the state. So the state, the head of state, should be speaking to his colleagues in the opposition, starting with the handshake partner, Raila Odinga. The two of them, those great gentlemen, Jubilee Party as a party with affiliations, have 172 members. You can write that down. Have 172 members. ODM as a party, without the affiliates, have 80 members of parliament. That brings you to 252. So these two good gentlemen, if they were in full support of implementation of the 2/3, have 252 members. Even if one or two may not be present, if they put their mind and soul and support this, we would pass it one afternoon. But you know what? We will not get it from them. So the next thing we do is to dissolve parliament or say no to an amendment of the constitution for things that we really don't know. I know, you know, women went there and we danced. Some women went there and danced to the change the constitution, the lege and whatever. Then there were those, the pink ones may have participated that way. Then the Inua Mama, we had our own our own dance. And your next question is, why do we need these two outfits? Why have we categorized? You know, women are not dichotomy. Women are not, they are not one. We are not singular. We are as plural as they can come. We are as colorful as they come. We are diverse as they come. What I know is that when it comes to the issue and question of the women agenda, common women agenda, we normally put aside those other side shows that you see in pink and in Inua Mama, and we have done that before. So, and I don't think the 2/3 gender principle issue suffered because of our different political affiliation, because of course we don't belong to the same political affiliation. And it is not possible to belong to the same, because also if you are in political parties, they have, you know, different manifestos, they have different beliefs, there are different fights all over within and without the political parties. Within the political parties, the fight is even bigger. Some political parties are busy destroying themselves, others are busy maybe realigning themselves. You see, so women have to also realign themselves immaculate. And because if they don't, you know, the visibility in political parties discourse is key for women. So you will see us in different political outfits. And until maybe they lose in those political outfits, then possibly they think of elsewhere. But it's also very important that women can develop their own clout, their own image, their own visibility, and come as independent candidates, because I can promise you, nomination ticket is such a big fight. It's an election by itself before you come to the final election. So you spend money twice, you mobilize heavily during nominations, and you are not assured of winning. So I think that Inua Mama and Embrace, I think, folded. Inua Mama has not yet folded. We still want to complete some of the projects that we have started. And we think that it is a very good, as the chair, I want to say that it's really, I think there was negative publicity about the two teams, possibly because of some of the messages that we were bringing out, and we must take responsibility for that. But I think the concepts are not bad per se. And the women from those kind of movements, women can create the political value that they need to create so that they can be able to mean something during elections. You know, I remember that even as we were looking for support from all over, and of course, Deputy President was one of our supporters, not the only one, but one of our supporters. He told us, don't carry me as your baggage, because my baggage might be too heavy for you. And true, it could be heavy, but still, you also need some political weights around you to be able to move to the next level. And therefore, you will see women around Jubilee, women around ODM, Jubilee, and we should have them in very key positions. In Kenya, you will see that you have women there. you see women in Amani, but they must take very strong and key positions within the political parties so that within there they can also be able to create space for other women and remove those problems and challenges that we are talking about and be the bearers of better packaging democracy, diverse, better democracy within the political parties. Thank you very much. I hope I can be allowed now to exit after this. Thank you very much, Tabu.
Thank you very much, Mheshimiwa, for being very candid. And I think this may not be the last time we are engaging you. Kindly continue to open your doors so that we interact as we build a women movement for 2022. Tunakushukuru for your time. And once you are free, kindly exit.
Thank you very much. Well
Right.
done.
As you are parting short, Mheshimiwa?
No, thank you very much. I wish everybody the best and I hope to engage you. I'm available, Tab. You know I'm available. A phone call away.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Right.
Keep safe.
We have heard from Mheshimiwa. She has responded to our questions. Madam Anne Ireri Idifida, karibu sana to this conversation, and we wish to bring you on board. Electoral contest in Kenya is guided by the Constitution of Kenya 2010 and other relevant legislation. 2022 is fast approaching, Madam Ireri, and the women of Kenya who are keen to run for political office need to be equipped. What, in your view, is a must read for these women politicians? And in a nutshell, highlight the critical provisions in the legal regime associated with this and each election. Two, Madam Ireri, given an opportunity to propose reforms to the existing legislation, to the existing, to the Constitution of Kenya, so to speak, what would be your proposals that from a gender lens, and allow me to say from a women lens, would do a lot of for the women who are keen to run for political office? Karibu, Madam Anne.
Thank you very much, Tabu, and all who have tuned in. I'll try to be quite brief. Unfortunately, I might have to be brief because of other engagements. But first and foremost, I've been listening in and just to thank CMD, who's a key partner in this space, for organizing this meeting. Very timely, very crucial, and indeed a conversation that must be had. I also want to thank the panelists who have gone before me, starting with Honorable Alice Wahome, who's a senior in the profession and has been at FIDA, both as an active member and at the board level. And we really celebrate her as one of those living examples of what we really aspire to do in terms of empowering women and to occupy the leadership positions. I also want to thank Millicent for the candid discussions and the perspectives that she has shared. Very critical again for us to be having this conversation. And as you have stated, there's so much to be digested, and this session may not be sufficient, but we'll try and just highlight by way of getting a start to the conversation and for the participants to just appreciate why it is that institutions such as FIDA, such as CMD keep pushing this agenda. I think my starting point would briefly just for us to understand why we call for women participation. Why is it that we keep on harping that we need numbers within the representation of women in Kenya? Over and above the reality that, of course, we are more than half of the population, I think we also need to be very candid as a country to track how well we are doing safeguarding the rights of women and girls. FIDA is turning 35 years this year. I think we are the oldest women's movement. And over time, not only have we been part of the journey of women leadership, but there's a reason to it. Being a membership institution made up of lawyers, our key aspect of service delivery is really bridging the gap between women and girls and the law. And over time, we have seen that the challenges that women in Kenya face pertaining to their civil and political rights, economic and social cultural rights, really have a nexus with the quality of legislation that we push as a country. So both at national level, at the Senate, at the National Assembly, but again, under the Constitution 2010, with devolution, we are very keen to see that the quality of legislation that is churned out from the county assemblies not only is women friendly, but speaks to the reality of what challenges women are facing. And so that is what really brings a genesis for us to push for women representation, understanding that we are not just saying we want women for numbers. There's a reason to it. Research has shown that where women are vested, where women are involved, the quality of legislation is more responsive vis-a-vis when they're not involved. A good example is the Sexual Offences Act that was really a product of the women's movement coming in, and we used the women parliamentarians then, notably now Supreme Court Judge Njoki Ndumo, alongside other legislators such as Honorable Millie Odhiambo, to push for a punitive law that for once and for all would address the challenges of sexual assault in this country. So that is just one example. So for me, even as we go forward having this discussion, for all the aspirants at different levels, we need to understand where we are coming from. Why are we pushing to have women in parliament, women in representation, and what is the agenda we're taking forward? We are in a country where the discussion of women and women issues has been relegated really to the backseat. We are seeing challenges where we need to push for key legislation such as the reproductive health bill. We still have an issue of girls not accessing dignity parks, that we don't have conducive or sufficient legislative and policy guidelines to protect girls, for example. So as we move forward, we need to be very critical and very aware of what agenda we are taking forward. And I say this again, being a woman, because no one else will carry the agenda better than us. Yes, we might have champions, we might have friends who are men, but we are the wearers of the shoe. So even as you plan out your campaign strategy at individual level, you need to really be in touch and really internalize what agenda you're taking forward, specifically the women and the children's agenda. And we've seen, I think, more than any other time in history in Kenya, with the COVID-19 pandemic, I think the reality of what women and girls face has really come to the fore. If you look at gender-based violence, if you look at matters such as FGM, if you look at girls being affected and being victims of teen pregnancies, these are the same reasons that we're really trying to push and have more women in positions of leadership and power to be able to craft out progressive, sustainable measures to protect this population we are seeking to defend. That's important because once you go out and you speak to the citizenry, one of the things we've seen as FIDA is when they understand where you're coming from, why, I mean, the common question will be, why do you keep on clamoring for women representation? But when you're able to demonstrate and to show that the nexus between the quality of life women and girls face in this country, which is really, really punched with a lot of poverty vis-a-vis men, the more reason we need women in leadership. And we have examples where women are, we've had progression, we've had sustainable and really positive laws that speak to women. And I know, I mean, we've seen huge legislations being churned out by the likes of Honorable Alice Wahome and her sisters in parliament, and that's the game we don't want to lose. But beyond that, and fundamentally, from a point of law, it is not that we are simply asking for tokenism. On the 27th of August 2010, Kenyans promulgated a new order, a new grand norm, as we call it. And part of the key aspirations of this law was to assure women and girls in this country of their fair space at the table. Space, as Honorable Wahome has mentioned, took decades and decades of fighting. At Boma, for instance, there was so much work that the women's movement collectively in this country had to put days and nights of really burning the midnight oil to safeguard this gain that was easily going to be lost. So when you look at Articles 27, you look at Article 81, Article 100, these are key anchors for any woman in this country because it is not that we are demanding or pleading. It is actually the law of this country that at any one time, no more than 2/3 of any gender will occupy electoral positions or appointive positions. So against this backdrop, that is why now we are seeking to have this provision being brought to life. As you've heard, as Honorable Wahome has mentioned, there have been numerous measures that have been taken to ensure this provision comes to life. If you recall, participants, this was a very first provision that was challenged immediately after 2010. In 2012, there was an advisory opinion that was sought by the then Attorney General before the 2013 elections, because the country already could sense we are going to a first general election under the Constitution of Kenya 2010. And one of the things we are certain we might not be able to fulfill is the gender provision. So the key thing we need to ask ourselves is, why of all provisions were they very quick to run with the gender provision in the country? It means from the outset, already there was cold feet that we may not be able to fulfill this provision, which means that as women, not only do we need to now really lift our guard, but we need to be certain and know the reality, the prevailing reality we are working with. That from the outset, it has been difficult to get women in elective positions, and that being the reality, what we do. And I like what both my co-panelists have mentioned, being what Millicent alluded to and Honorable Wahome, which I think is a message FIDA is also really pleasing, that yes, we have this provision. As we speak, not only have we mentioned and said that there's a risk of dissolving parliament, institutions such as CRU you've had, and FIDA ourselves, we are currently in court with a hearing date in October, where we are seeking that this petition needs to really be fulfilled and the Chief Justice needs to pronounce himself on that. But we need to be honest and practical and ask, as much as we might actually get the dissolution of parliament and we go to the fields to, as we say in Kenya, Kiwanja, do we have the constituent of ready women to be put into positions of power? Because that's where the discussion needs to go. And I like what has been highlighted that one, in terms of equipping women, as you have asked, Tabu, the key starting point is for women to understand that we are not seeking favors. We have proven we are up to the task. The Constitution guarantees this space for us. It is now for us to put ourselves forth and to offer our candidature without being fearful or intimidated. And yes, they say politics is a dirty game. You've heard what Honorable Wahome has said, you need to grow tough skin. And the news is, it's not only in Kenya. For those of you who try to follow, for instance, the American election, if you look at what the female vice president candidate Kamala Harris is having to go through every day, it's the same question, that anytime a woman offers herself for election or elective position, be it at parliament level, be it at society level, be it in the chama, be it at the cattle dip, whatever the case, it brings different connotations. It brings excitement. People all of a sudden realize you're a woman, because before that it's like they didn't know you're a woman, but now because you've declared your candidature, now yes, they realize you're a woman. So for us, what we are asking colleagues and sisters to do is that yes, institutions such as FIDA will be at the forefront. We are going to persistently push for the implementation and full implementation of the Constitution. We are going to ensure that the articles such as 27, 81, and 100 are fulfilled. But at the same time, we need a ready constituent of women candidates at all levels, from presidential to gubernatorial, to Senate level, to MP level, to county assembly. So that by the time the field opens up, we are not running helter-skelter, trying to look for candidates to fill these seats, because then we'll have shot ourselves at the foot. And as you've heard what Honorable Wahome has said, there's a whole process of planning, strategizing, choosing the right mobilizers at ground level, being alive. And as I say, people will not vote for you simply because you're a woman. You've got to know what your strategy and your manifesto is about. So we've been keen to talk to aspirants where we can as FIDA, pre the election season, during the election season, and after, to make sure that even when you get there, you are very consistent, because it is when we have fruits and results that are tangible of what women leadership means for this country, then we can speak to having more women. One of the things, and I say this every time I meet colleagues, as a country, we are facing a challenge of economic crimes. We are seeing every other day people being arraigned because they have not been able to prudently manage resources that they have. But you know what the breaking news in all this that no one wants to speak about? None of those people who are often, very few instances do we have women being arraigned in court. And that's something to celebrate, that we can see that women can be entrusted, women have shown results, and women can be put at the forefront of leadership and actually bring results and account for what they have done. So again, this is a reality we are looking at as a country, that as women, let us not be shy to really say what we've done well. We've had progressive legislation. If you go to the Hansards and look at the quality of debates, for example, Honorable Wahome brings forth, it is such quality discussion that we should not be shy about actually boasting that women prepare, women research, because remember, as a woman, you're forced to prepare twice or thrice as hard. So as you go out there, as we equip you, as you've had, it's the tough skin is important, but also there's a level of you'll want to demonstrate what are you bringing to the table, what change are you bringing, be in touch with what is really happening on the ground. Seek opportunities to capacity build yourself, and these opportunities are there. One of the silver linings with COVID is that now we realize you don't need to keep on traveling everywhere. You can access a lot of capacity building via technology. So really, really put yourself in a position where you feel in terms of financing, and not just financing for yourself, but when you get that position, how will you prudently manage issues such as CDF, issues such as the fund that you'll access by virtue of you being in leadership? Capacity build yourself consistently. Be aware of what are the key issues that women and girls are facing in your area. So by the time you go to speak to them, you know what to tell them. And I'll tell you one of the things we've seen as FIDA. One of the easiest, and I say easiest because not because they're simple, but because they're very straightforward constituency to speak to are folk quite at the village or at grassroots level, especially women and girls, because what they will ask for is just simply, what will you do for us? Be in touch with the challenges they are facing, including the men champions in those communities. Pick issues that speak to the reality of the challenges that people are speaking to. So yes, we will be working to ensure that these provisions are going to be filled in. The other thing we are trying to work as FIDA in terms of equipping women is a political parties aspect, as you heard. But I like what my senior Honorable Alice has mentioned. Political parties come with owners, and it is not just in Kenya. Look at the Democrats in the US, look at the Republicans in the US, they have owners. So that's really not the breaking news. The issue is, how do you navigate your space within these political parties? One of the things as FIDA we have been keen on, especially in the bigger political parties, is to see what's a space for women in these parties. In terms of the powerful organs, such as the NECs, such as the election dispute tribunals, such as, the decision-making bodies where resources are located, because until you're able to attach yourself to a political party and within it find a way of navigating, because remember, if you're not at the table, things will be discussed without you. So it calls for a lot of strategy, know how to navigate your party, make sure you find yourself in a position of decision making, whether you're going to sit in one of the many tribunals that are there, and you're actually calling out and speaking to political parties at one, as we get into a heightened election season. Over and above guaranteeing women and creating space for them in leadership, we'll want to see how well are you taking care of complaints that parties have, political aspirants have brought. As was mentioned by one of the participants, the issue of violence against women, insults that we know the easiest way to make women shy is always to indignify you. And yes, you'll be called all sorts of names. But one of the things we'd want to see, over and above the reality that you cannot chase everyone who decides to insult you, is, for instance, when you have a competitor, has your political party well taken care of a complaint mechanism where you can actually be able to prove my competitor was not playing fair game and this kind of violence was planned by them. So those are the things we want to hear, even as we go forth through the election, and FIDA will make sure we have a channel of communication. Call out those parties, because I can tell you for a fact, the key constituent that is really going to determine elections in 2022 will be the women and youth. And so political parties, big as they are, the owners that they may have, are not blind to the reality that they will need to make sure women are guaranteed of their safety, are guaranteed of their voice being heard. So it will be important for you to hold those same internal parties, internal structures to account. Do not be shy. Call them out where they are perpetuating and condoning violence against you as women. Call those parties out so that they know, even as you get into the race, you are already aware of your rights as a competitor, as a member of that party, within that party, before you demand the same standards from other competitors from other parties. So that's very important. In terms of the second question that has been forwarded to me by Mr. Tabu, is the issue of the reforms to the Constitution of Kenya 2010. Yes, there's a lot of discussion going on around reforms, around making this discussion better, the Constitution better for women. One of the things we have been bold about as FIDA, and we did go through even the report of the BBI as it was then, is one, we must be candid to ask the question, what is the problem with the existing law as is? Do we have tangible reasons, and specifically to do with women? Is there a problem with it? We are looking at a constitution that for a whole 10 years has failed to deliver on the promise of women and representation. A constitution that promised women access to quality policies and legislation on reproductive health. A constitution that promised women economic opportunity. Have we even actualized part of it before we start speaking to a change? Is it a question of implementation? Because in our view, that is the case. And would a new reform or a new amendment necessarily mean it would be enforced further? So we need to be very candid and very focused as women, not to lose its gains. Some of the issues that are being floated, and especially if you listen to the discussion of late, is, as has been mentioned by Honorable Wahome, let us not get comfortable with the 47 seats. Already there are undertones that these 47 seats might be scrapped, and that will be a huge, huge loss for women. So as we engage in this particular discussion, let us question what has not worked for women. Is it a question that the provisions were wrong, or is it simply a question of political parties and leadership in this country not being committed to really delivering on the promise for women? The other thing we need to remember is, even as we push for change, have we gone to those who really, really are affected by this issue to ask them? If you recall, the process of constitution making in the past was not that easy. We went around the country and made sure that everyone's voice was heard. In this particular discussion for reform of the constitution, have we gone to ask Wanjiku and Atieno at the grassroots level in their market business what they need? And by the way, asking for views at a political rally is not one way of civic engagement. So we need to be candid and remember that as women who are keen on gains, we must safeguard what we have. Let us make sure the constitution remains as is. Let us test it. And when we listen to what is being proposed, with all fairness and as a member, as an officer of the law, I can assure you, none of what is being proposed really needs a referendum, save for one or two new introductions, which you know are in terms of what they are. But in terms of women gains, whatever is there is sufficient, it is good. Let's first deal with their third, then we can get to 50-50. But let no one promise us of 50-50 when just a third has been a problem. So let's remain focused. As you go to the ground, as you craft your messaging, as you've had, very important, be factual, make sure you are alive to what issues are there, anchor your discussions on the law, don't be shy to state them as they are, because it is not because FIDA has said it or the women parliamentarians have said it, this is what is contained in the law. We have a right to equal participation, we have a right to representation, we have a right to fight it out for any seat, same with men. What we need as women is to strategize, grow the thick skin, but over and above that, please seek opportunities for mentorship, opportunities for capacity building, opportunities for peer strengthening. And FIDA as an institution will remain key and focused on that, and we look forward to even hearing from you individually after this webinar on ways where we can partner and support you, because our joy, as we have heard, is to see a good number of women from this particular engagement ending up in electoral positions. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Madam Ireri, for sharing with the women and helping them to understand what is it. And I'm excited with your last statement that that you are ready to partner. The women have heard. Now the question is, how are they going to work around the same? Madam Jane Maina, welcome on board. We have enough time, don't be worried. The women agenda has for a long time been set by men. Men have and imagine. Kindly mute your mic, tafadhali, so that we have one meeting. Thank you. Men have and imagine that they shall continue to set this agenda. Yet we have, as women, what it takes to set our agenda and narrative. Cognizant of the fact that society comprises both female and male gender, how do we take advantage of that fact for complementarity and collaboration as opposed to competition? Madam Maina, what options do we have to enable us draw from the male champions in our society? How do we get more men on our side to propagate the women agenda? Madam Maina, please.
Thank you very much, Tabu, and thank you, CMD, for organizing this conversation. I think it's a very important one, and it brings on board perspectives from the legal, policy, political, and community levels, which is a very good way of complementing all these approaches, because it is an issue that needs to be tackled from all directions. I would like to thank the previous panelists who have actually captured most of the issues very aptly. So I'll just, in a way, be maybe putting the same issues in a different perspective, being a community mobilizer like Millicent. As Community Education and Empowerment Center, we work a lot with women aspirants and also the communities to prepare communities or to sensitize them to embrace women's leadership. And from what we have seen from the ground, and it has been said over and over again, the reason the agenda is set by the men is just that one word that keeps recurring over and over again, patriarchy, which is rule of the fathers. It is a domination of men and subordination of women. That is the reason we see that the women, even if they are able and they have what it takes, most of the time their voice is lost. And the reasons have been mentioned by previous speakers. For example, the fact that resources are to a large extent owned and controlled by men. And in a country where political decisions are influenced by financial muscle, our politics are very monetized. So that, of course, puts women at a disadvantage. It has been said most political parties are owned, they are led, they are controlled by men. So when women get into these parties, their loyalty, their allegiance, first and foremost, lies with the party. So the party is the one that will set agenda. And of course, this is a man setting the agenda. So what I think we need to do is to dismantle this patriarchy. But of course, we know that is very difficult. It is a Herculean task. So we can start chipping at it. And the way to do this, and now speaking as a grassroots mobilizer, is to go down there to Wajiko and sensitize Wajiko on the need for gender inclusive leadership. And Wajiko here is both the male Wajiko and the female Wajiko. But in particular, we also need to sensitize the men on the value that comes with inclusivity, because most of the time the men do not see how they're also losing out by excluding women, and they are.
This patriarchy that seems to bestow so many favors and privileges on men is also disempowering the same men. So it's, if we can let them understand that it is in their interest to embrace women's leadership and have inclusivity, then I think we can see more men not being, so to speak, afraid of women coming on board, but embracing them so that we can complement each other as men and women. And as we try to change this perspective, I mean, the perceptions of the communities, I think previous speakers have talked about the need to create awareness at the grassroots level, the need to become visible, because that is very important if you're running for political office. But then as we sensitize the community on our agenda, on what we are bringing on board, because it has already been said that the agenda should not be that I'm a woman, that is not enough. I'm a woman, but what am I bringing on board? So as we sensitize the community and popularize our agenda, can we also sensitize activity? And this sensitization should target the various agents of socialization, because I've had people asking about this stereotype that women are their own worst enemies, and where did it come from? It came from this socialization process that starts right from the family. You're brought up as a girl within the family, and the messages you get by observing your parents, by listening to what is said around you, is that leadership belongs to the men, and women just play subordinate roles. You leave the family, you go to school, and these gender stereotypes are perpetuated even within the school settings. You go to the church, to the mosque, the same message keeps being repeated over and over again. The media, the same. You go to the workplace, the same. And now politics. So this socialization process that's happening through the various agents of socialization is very patriarchal in nature. And that's why I'm saying we need to start chipping at it. So even you as women aspirants, you have a responsibility, because most of these community members are actually very genuine in what they believe, because that is what they've been taught all their lives. That's what they understand. So you have that responsibility to start re-educating them, to start re-socializing them, because as we know, culture is very difficult to change. It's not something that can change overnight. It is a slow process, but if we engage in it, then slowly, and we have seen some changes happening, although very slowly, but eventually we'll get to that point where the community understands that these gender roles that we assume are natural, they're just roles, and we have learned them through the socialization process. So I think that is very important. It's a very important way of changing the perception and the attitudes and the beliefs that the communities have towards women leadership. And as I'm saying, and I want to repeat again, as much as we see that, as much as we perceive men as the enemy of women's leadership, let us also understand, and this has been mentioned, that us as women, we've been also socialized within the same system. So if I've been told over and over again that I cannot be a leader, I internalize that. And it becomes very difficult to see another woman being a leader. And this is why we are accused of being our own worst enemies, which we are not, by the way. It is just that we have internalized patriarchy. And that is the very reason why we need to start unlearning these things that we have learned that are not helpful, and starting to learn new ways of doing things. Then in order to enlist the support of our male counterparts, I think it's important for us to understand, as much as politics is about competition, it should not be about a battle of the sexes. It should not be about men versus women. But the message we should be spreading down there, because sometimes when you go down to the communities, some of the men say, oh, you give women power and they abuse it, or they sit on you. And again, this is patriarchy at work, because within this patriarchal culture, women are judged differently from men. We have double standards. A man will do something and get away with it. We dismiss it and say, oh, men are like that. But when a woman does it or does something even less serious, we say, oh, look at these women. Are these the women who want to become leaders? So I think if we can get the message across that we want to work together with the men, because we bring on board different experiences, different talents, different perspectives. And as a woman, I'm the one who can authoritatively talk about women's issues. A man cannot do that, and vice versa. So we are not asking the men to get up so that we can sit at the table. We are asking them to move over because the table is big enough so that we can share it. So I think if we can get this message across, that you want complementarity and that processes that are inclusive are sustainable. If you exclude half the population, then there's no way we can have development and growth. It can't happen, and research has proved that. And then again, helping the men realize that this inclusivity also works for them. Gender inequality works against them, but gender it works for them as well. So if we can manage to sensitize the men, we get male allies on board, sensitize them on positive masculinities. And positive masculinities is a kind of masculinities that does not hurt women, does not hurt children, and does not hurt men themselves. So if they get to understand that, then I think they'll slowly start supporting women's leadership, and we can have a more inclusive society. So again, like I said, that process needs to target the various agents of socialization. Even this process of getting male allies on board, it needs to start from the way we socialize our boys at the family level. It needs also to continue within the schools. How do we treat our boys at schools? Because we are not just doing this for 2022. We want to invest in future generations. We want to invest in posterity. And I know right now it's very difficult for women who want to get into political positions. It is also difficult for the young people. So you can imagine if you're a woman and you're young, it is double jeopardy. So even as we think about the upcoming general election, let's also think ahead and try to see what will happen to our young people. Are we also creating a future that is going to be gender inclusive? Are we creating a future where our young men and women, because now we are looking at gender as both. And one other thing that we have been doing as Community Education and Empowerment Center is helping the men see that today we are doing affirmative action in favor of women because women are the ones who are disadvantaged. But tomorrow it may be affirmative action in favor of the men, especially because of the male disempowerment that has started creeping in. We are starting to experience a masculinity crisis. So it is in their interest to support affirmative action in favor of women right now, because it could also happen to them. So some of these practical things, when you talk to them about some of these things and they start looking at the society and the way things are going, and they realize, yes, there is truth in these things that you're being told, then I think slowly they'll start changing their mindset and their attitude and their perceptions towards women's leadership, and stop perceiving women as people who are encroaching on their turf. So I think as we mobilize male allies, let's help them understand how patriarchy is hurting them, and also help them understand that these women that are being excluded are their mothers, they are their sisters, they are their wives, they are their nieces. And once we have women close to you who are disempowered, then that becomes a problem for you as well. So we need to help the men, the male allies that we want to mobilize to understand these simple practical facts. And then also to help them see that We do not want to disempower them. Empowerment of women is not equal to disempowerment of men. There can be that complementarity where we all win. And another tip that we have been using is using these male champions, because once you sensitize the male champions and they understand the issue and they come on board. Sorry, is it gone off? Hello? Tabu?
We're here.
You can hear me? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear. I'm not sure about the others, but I can hear you.
Okay. I thought I had gone off. So I'm finishing. I just wanted to say, let us use the male champions also to reach out to fellow men, because sometimes men will listen to fellow men. Let us use them so that they can reach others. And my parting shot is, those of us who are parents, let us socialize our sons properly, let us socialize our daughters properly, because it all starts from that level, a very basic unit of the society, the family. Thank you very much.
Asante sana, Madam Jane Maina, for that insight. I believe that all of us have something to take home. And the challenge here is that we need to ensure that we re-socialize ourselves. Before I bring in range, Madam Shamala, can you give us what you expect us to do, our tasks to perform? I must do list from what we have, then I bring in range because we are beyond. Are you there, Madam Shamala? Madam Immaculate? It appears we have lost her. Allow me to sincerely thank our panelists, Honorable Alice Wahome, Madam Anne Ireri of FIDA, Madam Jane Maina of SEC, and Madam Millicent Otieno of Local Capacities for Peace International, for sharing with us your thoughts with regard to shaping the women and their journey towards electoral contest. As I exit, I wish to invite Range to speak to us. Bwanarange, the floor is yours, or the airwaves, whichever you wish.
I was also here. Yeah.
Is that Shamala?
Yeah, that's me. I'm here.
Yeah, I wanted you before Range. Please go. Take the go, madam.
Yeah. I just want to say thank you very much to CMD, and thank you for moderating, Mr. Tabu, and thank you the panelists, and to us the women aspirants. Really, there's so much we need to do, and I think having been in our forum, there's so much that we need now to start in terms of having discussions in our own chapters, like Transoya chapter, was Gishu chapter, because we have different dynamics depending on the geographical and cultural dimensions that we come from. And so the takeaway is, can we continue these conversations, but then bring them down to the grassroots? Number two, let us think of how do we craft a common women's agenda, because that is the missing link that we have, and it has also been echoed by almost all our panelists. So how can we, and that is what we'll be talking the whole of today and tomorrow, ways of crafting a common women's political agenda, basing on what we've been discussing the whole of last week and this week. And then from there, we hope that Tabu and also CMD, we can now have a physical meeting now to firm up our thoughts and also to firm up our proposed actions. Those are the things that we are committed to do as women aspirants of Kenya, to come up with one common agenda that is not based on clothing, it's not based on textile, but it is based on an ideology. Thank you very much.
Asante sana, Madam Shamala, for that. And we promise that we shall remain committed to this cause. Range.
Thank you.
Are you there? Range.
Maybe Babu, as Range is getting in, there was a question on resource mobilization and funding of the political women aspirants. I'm not certain whether that question was answered. It was addressed to me in the chat box. And I just want to say that we can continue looking for avenues, but of course, looking at their institution and foundations that support political processes that normally have some sort of funding for the women aspirants. And I want to echo what Shamala has said as we move forward and talk about having this common women political agenda. We can be able as women to map out the resources and sources of funding and use the social capital to see how we can handhold and collectively mobilize resources for the specific women that are going for specific seats in different places. It's an ongoing conversation. I wanted to weigh in to say that don't just focus on one resource, source of resource, and your own funding may not be enough to finance a political campaign process. There needs to be support from different places. This is a conversation for another day. I just wanted to weigh in on because it was addressed to me. So thank you very much for having me in this panel, and I give it back to Range. Back to you also, Tabu. Thank you. Thank you for that.
Karibu sana, Madam Millicent Otieno, for sharing that. Range, if you're unavailable, I will wear my hat again of being a member of the board of CMD Kenya and say, I want to thank you, the women of Kenya who have been in this conversation, and those of us who are not on this platform but are listening to us remotely. Thank you, the panelists. Thank you for your time. I believe that this conversation has to take us places. I wish to remind you that our focus is one, that we need to secure our spaces. That space you have right now, you must secure it. Number two, you must enlarge your territory. Enlargement of territory means that you have to build allies. You have to enlarge your network. And our last focus is to fly. 2022, as Mheshimiwa Wahome put it, will be of use to us if we have many women in elective positions. These elective positions will guarantee nominative positions. So we shall have a double gain, that we have women elected and we shall have women nominated, courtesy of the elected space. As we end, Madam Millicent, don't forget that you are challenged to get into political space. Don't stop at community mobilization. Thank you very much. And God bless you. Bye-bye for now.
Thank you. Thank you. Food for thought. Bye-bye, and God bless you guys.
God bless you too.